Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Territories Talk. I am your co host, Shaina Smith Archer, saying good evening and hello from the beautiful Virgin Islands. With me this evening, I have a very special guest. We are doing our Overseas Territories Roundtable, and tonight we have persons from our sister territory, the Turks and Caicos Islands. Our co-hosts are hopefully going to be joining us in a little bit this evening. Chris and Shirley possibly will be with us. But before we get started, I just want to say a thank you, as always, to our media partners. Thank you to Cayman Marl Road Facebook page, Radio TCI, Montserrat ZJB Radio, Virgin Islands, CBN Radio FM 90.9, Radio Saba PJFE 93.9 FM, and Barbados's CBC Channel 8. Did I say Radio TCI? Let me make sure I put Radio TCI in. They would be very upset with me. So with us this evening, we have the Honorable E.J. Saunders. He is the Deputy Premier and Minister of Investment, Finance and Trade in TCI. Good evening, sir.
Good evening. How are you? Thank you very much for having me on the show.
Well, thank you for accepting our invitation. And we are running a bit late. We were just talking before the show about the fact that the region isn't on one time zone. So we do apologize for those that may have been tuned in earlier and was wondering what happened to us this evening. So we had a glitch in the time zone. But we are on at 7:30 at TCI time, actually. So we're still on time. All right, so Honorable, let's start with speaking about your portfolio. Give us an overview of what's been happening in the Turks and Caicos and share some highlights with our audiences.
Okay, well, thank you. I hope you can still hear me because where I'm at, the internet is a bit the internet is going in and out. But I will try to. If I have to repeat anything, I'm more than happy to do so. But I'm the Deputy Premier. My name is E.J. Saunders, and my main portfolio, my ministry is the Ministry of Finance, Investment and Trade. I put finance obviously first to point out the importance of it. So the most important part of my ministry is the finance portion, and then comes investment and then trade. Those are the three main areas, and none of other areas fall under my ministry, including the stats department. Mm-hmm. And then we have Invest Turks and Caicos Islands, Invest TCI, which also falls under my ministry, and a few other smaller departments. We've done very well. Some of the highlights I'd like to talk about, particularly during our time in government and my time as Minister of Finance, is that when we came into government, we came in February, the end of February 2021. We were all sworn in very early March, but the country's revenues at that point in time, so during COVID, was below 300 million. It was in the 290 something range. But the country's historic high, which was fiscal year 18-19, was around about 308, if I remember correctly. If it was slightly higher, it would probably be around about 313, but somewhere between 308 and 313. When I was campaigning, I said that we would get, if we were given a first term, we would get the revenues to 400 million. And if we were given a second term, which would be starting early next year, we would get it during the second term to 500 million. And it was I was very ambitious to think that we could come in and bring the country's revenues from 300 million to 400 million with no new taxes. So a lot of people thought it was bravado. When I came in, certainly my PS thought that I probably must have been pushing it a bit, because normally countries would give you incremental growth, somewhere in the single digits year-on-year growth. but to talk about adding 100 million new revenue with no new taxes in 4 years would have been very ambitious. But my first year as Minister of Finance, we went from, we had budgeted that year because we came in again in March. So we came in just before the budget, and we had budgeted 313 million, but we delivered in my first year 396 million. So we went all the way up close to the 400 million mark. Today, last year, we budgeted 420 million. We are in the middle of budgeting right now. I don't see any reason why we will be budgeting less than that. And so we are finishing our term comfortably above the goal that I had set. And I think we will certainly do 500 million. All of this is with no new taxes. So I think we will do the 500 million in next term. And that's managed growth, because if we had tried to push faster than that, we would have ended up burning up the economy, because we'd be growing the economy faster than we could put in the infrastructure and social services to support it. So you don't want to just get as growth as fast as possible. You want managed growth and balanced growth, so you can deliver all of the things that you need, the services and the infrastructure that you need to manage the growth well. I think we're doing a very good job at that. The other highlight was that when we came in, our MSME grant program was in spent its entire budget. We were doing less than 100 grants per year, and they never hit their budget. And I focused quite a bit on it. We revamped the guidelines around the giving of grants to small businesses. Last year, meaning at the end of the last financial year, that was March 2023, that was the first time they hit their budget and spent their entire allocation, but they spent it literally like the last week before the end of the financial year. This year, they had spent their entire budget by November of last year, which meant that before the end of the first half, they'd spent their entire budget, and we have to allocate more funding for them, which is a good thing, which means that they're giving out more grants, and we're giving out higher amounts, and we're giving out more grants. So those two things, and one more thing, we when I was campaigning, I said that we would, if we hit the 400 million, we would treat our civil service well, because I believe that government, I talked about it during the campaign, that government as a service is what we should be speaking to. Our customer service to the public should be top notch. I didn't think that we were there, but part of the reasons that in order to improve the civil service, we need to start with civil service pay. And our civil service pay lagged the private sector. So once we knew that we were comfortably above the 400 million mark, we were budgeting higher than 400 million. We gave the civil service an average salary increase last December. So it took effect this 2 months ago. We gave the civil service average salary increase in the mid-20s, in the mid-20%. And the lowest increase was, I think, 10%, and the highest was over 50%. But the average out was in the mid-20%. So we increased the entire civil service in November. And now the civil service is the employer of choice, because people in the civil service are making now more than the private sector. But we expect the private sector to catch up, and then it'll be an increase right across the country. So those are the three things.
Great. And you touched on quite a few things. So my background is actually, I worked in the Ministry of Finance when I returned from college in 2003. So you piqued my interest when you talked about growing revenue without increasing fees and taxes, because that tends to be what we see governments do as, I guess, a first response to have increased revenue. But you seem to have had more focus on intentionally growing the economy. So what are the main sectors of the economy as it stands right now?
Most of our revenue comes from 3 sources. One of them is the import duties, which always does very well, and it doesn't fluctuate wildly, so it's very predictable where we're going to get. I mean, of course, it has its highs and lows, but it doesn't go there. So we have the import duties. We have the hotel and restaurant and tourism tax. So that's basically a bad tax and a restaurant tax. So those are the two things that drive it, and stamp duty. Now, stamp duty goes with property sales, so it can go up and down. That can swing wildly depending on the inventory that you have available. We're a condo market, and we're now becoming more of a villa market, very, very high in villas. And so if a condo, that hotel project comes on stream and starts to make the inventory available for sales, the bulk of it, your stamp duty can go up quite a bit. And if there's hardly any inventory in the market, then of course it drops. But those are the three main pillars: the import duties, the hotel, restaurant, and tourism tax, and the stamp duty. And we try to be more deliberate about how we manage those. I like to say in Parliament that a lot of times these things don't happen by luck; they happen by design. We're starting to understand the levers much better, and so we know how to pull on each lever. Like I said, there's some things like stamp duties you can't really control it that much. It comes down to the inventory you have in the market. But as we get better at this, and we know with projects we have in the pipeline, we can know how aggressive to get those projects out, or whether we should slow down because we don't want too much of it coming into the market all in one time. So we're getting better at that. It's becoming right now, it's a little bit of more art than science when it comes to the stamp duty, and as well as the HRTT, because that depends on the amount of tourists that you have coming into the country. But Turks and Caicos is a hot brand right now, and so we're benefiting. We're benefiting from the fact that we have far, far higher demand than we expect in terms of tourism coming into the country. And that's the reason